Texas travels to TCU for the final time as members of the Big 12 Conference this Saturday. Hello and welcome to the Horns 24/7 game preview. Thanks for being here with us. Tommy Yarsh alongside the legendary Chip Brown. Chip, let's go ahead and talk right about this game off the bat. Last meeting in 2022, TCU wins it narrowly in Austin, 17-10. Had Texas won that game, they probably would have knocked TCU out of the college football playoff race pretty early on. The Horned Frogs, on the other hand, 8-3 against Texas as the Longhorns joined the Big 12 Conference back in 2012, and Texas under Steve Sarkisian 1-1 against TCU in their prior two meetings. So the first thing, Chip, and the biggest question for Texas coming into this game is whether or not Quinn Ewers is going to come back from his shoulder injury. So, number one, what's the latest that you've heard on Quinn Ewers? And number two, if he's unable to go, can Maalik Murphy find his footing and bounce back to lead the Longhorns to a win over the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, Tommy, I think Quinn Ewers is doing everything possible to be on the field near his hometown of South Lake, there in Fort Worth, and it could be a game time decision, but everything I'm hearing is that Quinn Ewers wants to be on the field with his team Saturday night in Fort Worth, and so. I think there is a reasonable chance you'll see Quinn Ewers Saturday night, but if not, as you mentioned, Maalik Murphy going on the road for the first time. His first two starts, obviously, in Austin. Turnovers have been a problem. The 4 turnovers he has in 2 starts are the most by a Texas quarterback in 2 starts in the last 20 years. I think Steve Sarkisian can do Maalik Murphy a huge favor if it is indeed Maalik Murphy starting on the road and run the football. It's still kind of amazing to me that the only time Texas has hit 50 carries in a game was against Kansas. How did that game turn out? Pretty darn well. Texas held the ball for 40 minutes. Kansas could do nothing. And Texas rolled a good Kansas team that has beaten Oklahoma, and Texas pounded Kansas 40-14. That's the recipe for success. Heck, it's the recipe for success even if Quinn Ewers plays. So that's how you help your quarterback situation. You let Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter, who looks healthy and had 10 carries for 90 yards last week against Kansas State, as Texas ran for 230 yards in that win. So that's how you help your quarterback situation. Run the football, Tommy.
Running the football, I think, can kind of translate to our second question here as well. When it comes to, at the start of the season, Texas was really good at finishing games. They would start off a little bit slow. Really stood out to me in the first 3 games of the season against Rice, Alabama, and Wyoming. Texas started off a little bit shaky, and you raise your eyebrows a little bit, but then they came back in the second half and they played much better. So now, however, through the last couple of games, it seems like that script is flipped. The Longhorns opened up really good against Houston and Kansas State, and then after that, they've kind of reverted to a little bit of the version of Texas that we've seen under the first 2 years of Steve Sarkisian, where they would start strong and just not be able to finish in the second half. Why is that, and how do you fix it? Is it the run game, or could it be something else?
Well, I think the run game certainly helps the offense because it demoralizes the opposing defense. Once you hit the fourth quarter, and if you've been running the ball successfully all game like Texas did against Kansas, they don't want any more. They don't want to see Jonathan Brooks or CJ Baxter coming through the A, B, or C gap anymore. And from a defensive standpoint, you've got to continue to be aggressive. And what we've seen for Texas in some of these games against Houston, against Kansas State, where Texas gets up by a good bit, 21-0 against Houston, 27-7 against Kansas State with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. You're, seeing them play some off coverage. Now, Ryan Watts returning to the lineup after the hamstring injury against Kansas State made all the difference, because Ryan Watts at 6'3", 206 pounds only knows one way to play, and that is up on the line, getting his hands on you. And he's been doing a pretty darn good job of taking away the boundary side of the field. But teams have been attacking Texas up the middle, going after their safeties and to the field side. And that's where Texas has to remain aggressive, in my opinion, in their pass coverage. Now, you want to be smart because Josh Hoover can run, and you don't want a Dillon Gabriel situation happening in this game, but it's not going to be 90 degrees either like it was. You are going to see up-tempo offense. This is Kendall Briles, the son of Art Briles, running the TCU offense. It's crazy I'm saying that, considering how much Gary Patterson and Art Briles hated each other. I'm sure Gary Patterson is like still in disbelief that Kendall Briles is the offensive coordinator at TCU, but they will run tempo. They will try to get things going quickly so Texas cannot sub. And in my opinion, Texas, with their new sort of, I'll just call it the Mo Blackwell package, where they move Anthony Hill up onto the line. Ethan Burke's in there on first and second down, and now maybe third down as well after the game he had last week. But, when they have Mo Blackwell with Jalen Ford and Jahdae Barron kind of at that linebacker level, spying the quarterback, also, able to cover well in that short to medium range of passing route, I'm hoping that Texas will be more aggressive on the outside with corners up, not off, in terms of their coverage, because it's allowed teams to get back into the game. Will Howard kind of got hot in the third quarter last week. Can't let that happen. And Texas needs to keep applying the pressure. But, I say start with the running game on offense, because the best way to keep the opposing offense off the field is to hold the ball, run the ball. Texas has had excellent results on the ground this season.
We'll talk a little bit more about the coverage aspect of this later when we get to our game predictions. But last question here for you, Chip. You put it as the purple hex that TCU has had over the Longhorns. Like we said earlier, Texas 3-8 against TCU since they joined the Big 12. Sonny Dykes, as a head coach, is 3-0 against the Longhorns. He was 2-0 at Cal, and now he's 1-0 at TCU with the victory last season. How does Texas pick up this win on the road and finally end the Sonny Dykes curse, if you will?
Yeah, don't give them any hope. This is a TCU team that has lost, 3 of its last 4, and is kind of drifting. Don't be the reason they find themselves. Obviously TCU wants this in the worst way. They want to be able to say, and what could be the last meeting between these two schools, that they have bragging rights, and they can look at that 8-3 record. They can look at last year's win when Texas had them at home, coming off an impressive victory at K-State, had some momentum, and then they, go into that game in Austin, and it's the only game in the 34-game Steve Sarkisian era in which Texas has not scored an offensive touchdown. Had first and goal from the 2 in the third quarter, first and goal from the 5 in the fourth quarter, and come away with only a field goal. This has got to be a, pedal down, no air win. You cannot take your foot off the gas for a second and allow TCU to find itself, because look at what Kansas State did to TCU. Look what West Virginia did to TCU in Fort Worth. Texas owns the line of scrimmage and should own the line of scrimmage in this game. So I'll be stunned if Texas is throwing it around. I don't need Quinn Ewers or Malik Murphy throwing the football 37 times like they did last week against Kansas State, when you're running it for 230 yards on the ground. Don't overthink it. Just keep pounding the rock. That's how you get rid of the purple hex. That's how you, completely dismiss that 3-8 record in their last 11 meetings, and Sonny Dykes having a 3-0 record against the Texas Longhorns. Just pound it. And you've got the two best defensive tackles in college football. Act like it. Be aggressive, and just don't let TCU have any hope in this game.
All right. Well, if any of you folks need help breaking hexes, now you know that Chip Brown is your guy to talk to. Chip, last segment here for you. Score predictions. I'll let you go first.
You always let me go first. All right. Here's the deal, Tommy. If Steve Sarkisian follows the Kansas Jayhawk recipe of, hey, we're going to run this thing 50 times. We're not going to let him have the ball. We're not going to let Josh Hoover go nutso on us. And they do have talent. I mean, this is a TCU team that has talent. That's what's dangerous about them. They've got 8 starters back from the defense that completely locked up the Texas offense last year. They've got, Josh Hoover can run around. He played really well against BYU. Now he's turned it over in every game he's played. And he had 2 interceptions against BYU and 2 interceptions last week against Texas Tech they beat BYU. They lost to Texas Tech. And you just, you just can't let these guys figure it out, because right now, after getting punched in the mouth by Colorado to start the season and having all the air come out of, oh my gosh, we made it to the national championship game, and now we just lost at home to a Colorado program that went 1-10 last year. They haven't been able to figure it out. Don't let them figure it out. I'm counting on Steve Sarkisian pounding the rock this week. This game should be more similar to the Kansas outcome than to the Houston or K-State outcome. I'm going to say Texas 35, TCU 17.
All right, so
what do you say, Tommy?
We see this a tad differently. I do agree with you on the Texas side. I think they get 35 and that they win this game. However, I see TCU scoring a little bit more, not because the Texas defense as a whole isn't great, but against the past couple of weeks, they have struggled. And like you talked about earlier, Chip, they play so far off the line that it's almost allowing teams to move the ball through the air against them. So if that continues, and, against Kansas State, they knew what they're getting in Will Howard. They played against him last year. They know he likes to move the ball around, and they're still playing soft in coverage. So until I see that they're being more aggressive in the secondary and playing tighter coverage, not allowing these quarterbacks to wheel and deal around them the entire time, I can see opposing offenses with 2 guys at the helm and Sonny Dykes and Kendall Briles, who love to throw the ball, continue to put up points on the secondary. So, like I said, I see Texas winning this one 35-27 for TCU. I said in the mailbag earlier that it was going to be less than 10 points, but I still think the Longhorns find a way to win this one. Obviously, that score not attractive to a lot of fans, but nonetheless, they win and they continue their push for the Big 12 championship. Josh Hoover at quarterback is a guy who likes to move the ball around and is good when he throws the ball. I saw it firsthand. He cooked my high school in my junior year of high school to knock us out of the playoffs. They put up like 45 points on us, and he had like 4 touchdowns. That had nothing to do with my prediction today, but what I do think is I think the reason why Texas wins this game is turnovers. Hoover has thrown at least 1 interception in every game that he's played so far this season for TCU. I think he throws 2 in this game, and Texas under Steve Sarkisian has never lost a game when they win the turnover battle. So I think that trend continues, and Texas picks up another win on the road in Fort Worth. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Horns 24/7 game preview. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. As always, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you are the first to know when new content heads your way. For the great Chip Brown, I'm Tommy Yarnish. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.